I'm the last living person that survived the fulcrum shift of 1975, and I'm detailing those events here before I pass. In short, fear the ACTS 176 protocol. // have you ever experienced disbelief so powerful that it's broken you? If you have to think about the question, if a particular memory doesn't erupt to the forefront of your mind like it was shot out of a cannon, if you're second guessing your answer for even a moment. Trust me when I say that you haven't, and you're not missing out. Count yourself as fortunate, actually. There's nothing positive to be gained from the experience of reality-wide disintegration, and for the curious among you, I'm going to do my best to explain it anyway. For those unfortunate souls who have been where I've been, God, I'm so sorry. You see, that level of raw bewilderment isn't even a feeling. It's not something that washes over you, like rage or sorrow. No, it's a place your consciousness goes to hide from the existential discomfort of it all. But that place has a steep price of admission. Mind-breaking disbelief is a vampire shaped like a pure white room. A cage completely suffused with perfect, colorless light. Illumination so overwhelming that it's blinding, and it feels like you're in the dark. Time is a suggestion. Seconds only lurch forward when the mood suits. A blink of the eye can last a minute or a millennium. It seems like you can move through the room, but you get nowhere. Though I'm not sure if that's because its confines are impossibly vast, or if it's actually the size of a broom closet and the sensation of being able to move is a lie, an illusion, a trick of the light. But when push comes to shove, you have to do something, even if it's ultimately futile. So, you pick a direction and start walking. And while you're sunk in that maze, its walls and their light are draining you, bleeding away some crucial part of yourself you'll never get back. Eventually, though, like any vengeful god, it gets bored with your misery and casts you aside. Lets your soul trickle back into your flesh. The soul that's delivered back to your listless, waiting body isn't the same as it was before, though. It's irreparably fractured. A shattered clay pot that's been hastily glued back together, malformed and fragile. When I was delivered back, finally freed from that blood-sucking pocket universe, my head was still hanging over the side of the door frame, gazing down into the cerulean abyss that used to be our cloudless sky. There was something wrong, though, aside from the devastatingly obvious. Other than the cold, ethereal whisper of the swirling atmosphere, the world was silent. Where in God's name was Emmy? I shot to my feet, using the hinge of the door to pull myself vertical. Once I was upright, I found myself immediately possessed by a blistering vertigo, and that was almost the end of me. My head was spinning, my vision blurry, and the top of the door frame where I stood was thin. Only a few precious inches of footing available for me to wobble on. As my eyes adjusted to the surreal view, our street now a ceiling to the heavens with the blue sky below, I nearly toppled forward. Reflexively, with rapid heartbeats thundering against my throat, I threw my right foot backward. My heel reached out, feeling for some sort of level ground, conditioned to expect there would floor behind me to latch onto. Of course, that expectation was born from the old state of the universe. When my foot found no purchase, I tumbled spine first into the atrium above our doorway. Thankfully, the distance to that curved-out cove wasn't too far. I plummeted a few feet down, and an overturned doormat cushioned my landing. The only serious injury I sustained was a laceration to the point of my elbow as it crashed through a boxed lighting fixture at the center of the atrium, sending shards of glasses flying in all directions. I groaned, my body painfully contorted in the small, awkwardly shaped pit. Initially, I struggled to get to my feet again. The shift had tossed my body and mind around like a ragdoll, and exhaustion was accumulating fast. A whimper from deeper inside the house revitalized my efforts, however. Mom, where are you?" Emmy was alive. Scrambling up the curves of the atrium caused my sneakers to squeak against the dry plaster of the ceiling. Splinters of glass cut and tore into my palms as I crawled, but I kept pushing, moving on all fours like an animal. Eventually, I was high enough for my fingers to grasp the edge of the pit, and I pulled my trembling body over, anchoring 2 throbbing biceps across the boundary to steady myself. My eyes scanned the absurdest nightmare that used to be my living room until they landed on my daughter. To my immediate relief, she appeared intact. Emmy was lying on her back about halfway between me and the entrance to the kitchen on the opposite side of the room. There was a colossal, piano-shaped hole to her right, where the instrument had exploded through the roof of our one-story home. Various pieces of furniture were scattered haphazardly around the ceiling turn floor as a result of the shift, but by the looks of it, none of the heavier items had landed on her. "Emmy, just stay where you are. Don't move, I'm coming to you," I shouted. With a pained grunt, I forced my body up and over the edge, and slowly lowered myself down onto the ceiling. In the past, I had lamented to Ben about how flat the roof was. Our home was fairly stout, too, no more than 10 feet tall if I'm remembering correctly. The combination of those two features made the space feel compressed, boxy, and lifeless, like we were all incarcerated in the same oversized federal prison cell. In that moment, however, I couldn't have been more grateful for those inert dimensions, as they made getting to Emmy easy. I can't imagine how treacherous it would have been to navigate a vaulted ceiling post-shift. After about a minute of carefully wading through the demolished remnants of our life, stepping over eviscerated photos and broken heirlooms, I found myself kneeling over Emmy, running my hand through her hair as hot tears welled under my eyes. It wasn't long before she asked that dreaded question. I felt the blood drain from my face, and I stopped stroking her hair. I didn't feel ready, but I suppose no one who's been in that position ever does. "Where, Dad?" After much consideration, I've decided to leave the few hours that followed my answer to that question out of this record. It's not that I have any difficulty recalling it, quite the contrary. The memories have remained exceptionally vivid. I still suffer from the faint reverberations of that afternoon to this very day, half a century later. You just can't shed grief that profound. But unlike the reality-breaking disbelief of the shift, profound grief is an inevitable part of life. Everyone loses a parent at some point, and very few are satisfied with the time they were allotted when they pass. To that end, I don't feel like I need to dwell on it. You all know what it's like, to some degree. Not only that, but failing to immortalize those moments means they finally will dissipate. When I die, I'll take the memories and their reverberations with me, and then there will be nothing left of them for anyone to feel. And I find a lot of solace in that thought. In the early evening, out of tears and unsure what to do next, Emmy and I were sitting next to each other on the perimeter of the piano-shaped hole. We had spent a small fraction of the afternoon theorizing about what had caused the shift, but the exercise felt decidedly futile. I mean, where do you even start? Existence as we knew it had been fundamentally redefined. Essentially, we gave up before the topic could stir us into a panic. So instead, Emmy and I silently tossed shards of glass through the hole, vacantly watching them disappear into the sky, which had transitioned from the bright blue of a cloudless day to the dimmer pink-orange of twilight. Like skipping stones that never seemed to bounce off the surface of the water. It wasn't peaceful, but it was quiet. There just wasn't much else to do with ourselves. The TV was broken from the shift, and the phone lines were dead. Our options were limited. The activity killed time until whatever was next came to pass, if there was anything next. Maybe this is it. Maybe all of this is just permanent, I contemplated. Eventually, out of the graven tranquility, a familiar voice materialized, laced with static and fear. "Emmy, are you there? Can you hear me? Over," Regina said, her whispers crackling through the nearby walkie-talkie. My daughter sprung to her feet and practically sprinted over to her open backpack a few yards away. Hey, Emmy, careful," I yelled after her, but it's like she couldn't hear me. The words simply couldn't reach her. She was impenetrably elated. Instead of digging through the backpack, Emmy elected to just turn the bag upside down and dump its contents, desperate to find the walkie-talkie. Books and pencils clattered loudly around her until the blocky device finally appeared at her feet. I stepped over and placed a reassuring hand on my daughter's shoulder, apprehensive about what we could possibly hear next. This is conversation as I remember it. I've removed all the concluding overs for readability's sake, / Emmy, Regina. "Oh my God, are you okay, Regina?" "Yeah, I'm okay, I think. Twisted my ankle when it all happened, but otherwise I'm okay." There was a pause. Emmy was overcome with emotion, but didn't want to upset Regina by transmitting that over the line. "Regina, do you guys really think this is the rapture?" A slithering sort of fear wormed its way into my skull. That word wasn't one a 14-year-old would choose to say on their own. It sure sounded like something Barrett would say, though. I tapped Emmy on the shoulder and put out an open palm, gesturing for her to hand me the walkie-talkie. Thankfully, she obliged me. "Hey Regina, it's Emmy's mom. What makes you say that? Are you safe, Regina?" "Well, it's all my dad, been talking about it. He keeps saying how the good Lord is trying to empty his pockets of us. And, God's trying to drop us into heaven by making the world upside down. Also, that, well, he already made everyone else into angels down there. You can see it, can't you?" Her speech became more and more frantic as she recalled the ad-libbed sermon Pastor B had been giving since the shift. By the end, the words had started to jumble incomprehensibly together. Me, okay, sweetie. I understand, I do. No, I really don't think this is a rapture. I don't what it is, if I'm being honest. All I know for certain is that I'm glad you and Emmy are still here with me. 30 seconds passed. No response. Me, Regina, are you there? Another 30 seconds. I could feel Emmy pacing nervously behind me. I was about to click the button and ask again, but finally, a voice came back through the receiver. "Barrett, what kind of loathsome notions are you trying to plant into my daughter's head, Hakura?" My heart turned to solid concrete and hurtled through the bottom of my chest. Me, Barrett, where, Regina? Another 30 seconds or so passed. "Barrett, I suggest you look down, Hakura. Really look down, both into heavens and into the black depths of your craven soul. This rapture is woefully incomplete, but I hope we can reconcile that together as a spiritual family. Barrett, at that time people will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. And he will send his angels and gather his elect on the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of the heavens." Me, Barrett, let Regina talk again. "Nothing. Me, Barrett, please, just let Emmy talk to Regina again." Nothing. We wouldn't hear from either of them until the following morning, and it wouldn't be through the walkie-talkie. We'd hear Barrett at his front door with a megaphone, Regina at his side, trying to convince the remaining survivors to dive into the heavens, thereby completing the rapture. It took a long while to calm Emmy down, but once she soothed, my daughter was out cold for the rest of the night. Utter exhaustion is one hell of a sleep aid. As she slept, I softly made my way into Emmy's bedroom. While in middle school, she and Regina had gone through a very cute astronomy phase. Puberty eventually beat the hobby out of both of their systems, as it tends to do with any passion that can be perceived as even slightly nerdy. But I knew she still had a semi-expensive telescope we got her for Christmas in her closet. The same model that Regina had, as a matter of fact. Before the shift, they'd still stargaze together, marveling at the constellations over their walkie-talkies in the dead of night. Emmy was under the impression Ben and I hadn't noticed, and we certainly didn't let on that we had. She would have been mortified to be caught doing something so childish. I needed it because what Barrett said earlier that afternoon had really lodged itself into my brain. He already made everyone else into angels down there. You can see it, can't you? I suggest you look down, Hakura. Really look down? I wouldn't be able to fall asleep until I looked, so I quietly positioned the telescope next to the piano-shaped hole, tilted the lens down into the heavens, and peered through the eye-hole. After less than a second of gazing into the magnified depths of the starry sky below, I jumped backwards, slapping a hand over my mouth to muffle an involuntary gasp. Impossibly far away, I saw the sedan that had nearly crushed Ben and Mr. Baker. Nothing that had fallen was actually gone. Nothing had simply drifted off into space. From what I can remember, it appeared as if an invisible, perfectly linear net had caught all of the debris. As I stepped forward and peered through the telescope again, my hands quavering as it adjusted the view, I saw it all. Every object, every animal, every person, all motionless on the same sheet of atmosphere, stuck to some imperceptible barrier. A massive, cosmic bulletin board of all the things and all the lives that had been lost to the shift. And I could almost understand how Barrett saw them as angels. They all looked untouched. Certainly dead, don't get me wrong, but they didn't appear physically damaged. The corpses hadn't splattered like they would have if they fell to the ground at that same distance. No rot, no decay at all. Granted, it had only been about 16 hours, but they all looked unnaturally pristine for being dead for even that amount of time. If I didn't know any better, I'd say their skin almost shimmered a bit, too. Faint, rhythmic light seemed to pulse below their flesh. And after a few minutes of searching, I found him. I saw Ben. Backslash is an hour later, I returned the telescope to Emmy's room. She didn't need to know what I'd seen. While out of earshot, I clicked the walkie-talkie back on, lowered the volume, and began turning the knob towards the frequency Emmy and Regina used to communicate. It was a long shot, but I wanted to see if Regina was somehow in a position to respond. Before I reached that frequency, though, I unintentionally eavesdropped on another clandestine message. I wouldn't be 1% sure of its relation to the shift until the following morning. It was a male voice, monotone and emotionless. Maybe it was Ulysses, maybe it was. All I know is it kept repeating the same message with a slight variation every 60 seconds on the dot. I caught the first transmission halfway through, so what I heard sounded like this. S176 protocol, pending fulcrum 957 60 seconds. A CTS176 protocol, pending fulcrum 956 60 seconds. A CTS176 protocol, pending fulcrum 955 60 seconds. Backslash, I just had an epiphany. Earlier, I needed to Google the exact wording of that Bible verse Barrett recited to me over the walkie-talkie. Since I only recalled bits and pieces of it, the process took a little while. Eventually, I found it. At that time, people will see the Son of Man coming in clouds with great power and glory. And he will send his angels and gather his elect on the four winds, from the ends of the earth to the ends of the heavens. Mark 13:26-27. While I was scouring through a list of all the different books in Bible for the quote, though, I stumbled upon something else. The last 50 years, I've assumed ACTS was an acronym, and 176 was some sort of way to catalog whatever the acronym stood for. I may have been wrong. Now, I need to consider what it could mean before going forward and finishing my recollection. Acts 17:6. But when they did not find them, they dragged Jason and some brethren to the rulers of the city, crying out, "These who have turned the world upside down have come here too." Hakura, not my real name.